welcome to the Cinema Condition, a podcast devoted to analyzing films and what makes a movie a movie. I am your host, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, a filmmaker, podcaster, and lover of cinema. Today I am joined by Marissa. They are a full time content creator over at the Review Crew with our past guest, Nathan, their husband. And today they have selected Christopher Nolan's Memento. Hey Marissa, how are you doing today?
I am good. We're living. I'm
Yup.
excited to be here. I'm so excited.
I know. I made the joke in the episode with Mr. Doctor, and I said, if it happens to be that there's a slot open, Marissa's next. What happened?
Look at that.
A slot opened up. For those of you who are listening, you're like, this isn't our episode on Barry Lyndon. What happened to that one? Yeah, I have to move that to next season, y'all. Kelvin is kind of going through a rough time at the moment, and there's a lot going on in LA with work and stuff. So he cannot be here to do. He cannot do this episode with me. So when one opportunity closes, the other one opens, right? And
Heck yeah.
Marissa decided to step in for me here.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be able to step in. Our channel's pretty new and I am a pretty freshly new movie
Yeah,
lover. I don't even know if I would call myself a movie lover, more of like a movie liker.
we like her. Yeah. Well, you're freshly new to the space.
Yeah.
This is like a space that's honestly not um there's not a lot of married couples that are in this space. I know there's one channel with it's Wendy Lee Zaney and this and her husband, and they do like trailer reactions and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
I can't
I would love
remember.
to watch some of their stuff. You
Yeah,
should send it to me.
yes, I will. I can't remember their name, but I know that it's both of them, and they do like trailer reactions, and they'll reviews and stuff. But like other than that, and like maybe some here and there within the particular space of physical media that I watch, that there'll be married couples that do it. But usually you don't really see married couple channels talk about movies, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big
We're
fan of
a
Review
little
Crew.
unique.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Review Crew. I always watch all
Thank
the videos,
you.
always leave a like, make sure that you guys are doing the same thing, right? But I've been loving the videos. I was so happy when you guys did the channel. Like I was like, yes, like
Thank you.
this is it. Like because
Yeah, it's been a long time coming because my husband, he's the movie guy, right? And so ever since we
hmm
started dating, he's like, "Have you seen this? Have you seen that?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I don't watch anything." And so like it was like a whole it was like a whole journey for him to like rediscover his love for like all of these movies.
yeah,
And eventually, I would like come home from work or he would come home from work and he'd be like, "I can't believe like this movie and this guy." And it would just be like the most random things ever.
yeah.
Like there's a video on our first post on our Instagram channel of him ranting about this guy. That's from Big Hero 6. So like randomly, we didn't even watch that movie. I think he just like
You
had it
just
in his
thought
head.
about it. Yeah,
So he was like doing that all the time and I was like, "Dude, you're so funny. Like this is so funny." And I love creating, like content creator. So I was like, "Dude, let's put you in front of a camera." Like, and I'll do it too cuz I have grown to like movies. When he showed me Memento, I was like, oh, "Movies can be like this? Like
yeah.
what?" So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad. I'm glad because I missed you on streams. I've missed you, but I also understand like why you stepped away and you're like I was like okay, cool, it's fine. But I always knew that there was kind of an itch back there, right? Like you're like I want
Oh,
to do something.
absolutely.
You're like oh, I want to do
Yeah.
something again, like, and I think that the avenue of the review crew that you're doing right now is just like it's great. It's great. You can tell that you really enjoy it. You can tell you really enjoy, and you can tell that you also feed off of a lot of what Mr. Doctor's doing there, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, which is like
It's fun.
I don't get why you would want me involved in there, because like it's gonna throw a wrench in there. Like what is going?
No, no, it'll be so fun. It would be so great to have you because, we're pretty funny and silly, but then you could give us new perspectives on like how things are, what they mean, like intellectual stuff. Like you have like the film history down. You
Yeah.
have the film experience down. Like you've been behind the camera, like shooting your own films. Like that's and writing and like that's incredible.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, Marissa decided to step in here, and I don't know, what's it called? She was in the back to watch, Mr. Doctor record his episode, and that's by the time this is up, that means that episode is already up as well. So you've already heard that episode. So I'm glad that I was able to get both of them on this season, even though this was completely not planned, completely not planned. But I'm glad that I was able to get you on here, and I know that this is like the first time in a while. Oh, first time in a long ass time since we've been together on a thing like this, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just happy. I'm glad that I got you bring you into this. But
Me
when you chose
too.
this movie though, I was like, okay, I didn't expect you to want to do this one. I was like, we're really gonna open up the floodgates here, because it's like, oh, you want to start with probably one of the most confusing narratives to exist in film
Yeah.
history, to the point where you have to watch a video where Nolan's actually like on a whiteboard explaining to you
This
how
is
it
the
goes.
storyline.
But I promise, I think we're gonna have ourselves a good conversation here.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah. Well, because we have never actually discussed the filmmaker known as Mr. Christopher Nolan, I do have to introduce him to the people. So I did write a decent introduction for Mr. Nolan, even though, my God, this man has had a long career. Well, not long. I wouldn't say like long career, but he's had a very prolific career, that there is so much information on his wiki page that I had to like condense it into a decently, sized paragraph introduction.
Yeah.
There is so much I am missing out of here, y'all, that I have not included in here. But I felt that I needed to include what I could to, put into this introduction that would, make up for at least a good paragraph. But there is so much more to Nolan that you all don't know. Like, I didn't include it in here, but if you guys didn't know, Christopher Nolan got in a fight in like around 2005 with director David O. Russell. And he got put into a headlock by David O. Russell, which apparently my friend also told me makes sense, because Christopher Nolan is best friends with Christian Bale. Christian Bale also got into a fight with David O. Russell. So I read that, I was like, what the heck? And I started laughing writing that intro, because I could just imagine like this 2005, and like, he's like, he looks pretty youngish at that time too, British guy. Let's go with his like blonde hair and everything, just getting put in a headlock.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But let me go ahead and introduce you all to the filmmaker known as Christopher Nolan. Born on July 30th, 1970 in Westminster, London, Nolan's influences range from the films of Ridley Scott and the science fiction films like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Star Wars. Nolan began making movies at age 7. He borrowed his dad's Super 8 camera and would shoot films with his action figures. At age 11, he aspired to become a professional filmmaker. Nolan and some of his friends co-directed a surreal 8mm film called Tarantella. Christopher Nolan decided to take an unconventional route to his film education, so he decided to major in English instead. His father actually said if you study film directly, if you don't study film directly, it allows you to look at movies from a different lens, and it allows you to understand that language a little differently. So he decided to, study English instead. And he graduated in 1993. Nolan worked as a script reader, camera op, and directed corporate videos and industrial films. During the late 90s, Nolan had little to no success getting projects off the ground, which absolutely surprised me that he had trouble getting budget, because now Nolan, knowing like Nolan broke up with WB after Tenet and got one of the biggest deals to make Oppenheimer, and has his points that he wants to be met, to the point where like 4 weeks before and 4 weeks after, no movie's allowed to premiere alongside Oppenheimer. It's like, what the heck? Like at one point, this dude who apparently has some of the most power in Hollywood when it comes to budgetary reasons had a problem getting money.
Okay, but quick question. Are you down to see Barbie on the same day as Oppenheimer?
I am planning to do
That's
my double feature. Yes, I am
that's
planning to
what
do.
we're doing.
Yeah, I'm planning to do my double feature, and I'm pretty sure during that week I'm going to have like 4 reviews for that because I'm going to have a review for Barbie and Oppenheimer up at the
I
same
love
time.
that. I love that.
Yeah. Uh, Nolan made his directorial debut in 1998 with his noir film Following. In 2000, after the success of Following, Nolan was able to make Memento. Memento was met with critical and financial acclaim. Steven Soderbergh was really impressed with the film that he recommended Nolan to Warner Brothers and thus birthed the 2002 American remake of Insomnia. That is the film that stars Al Pacino and Robin Williams. I actually got the chance to watch that a couple years ago when we did our Christopher Nolan month over at the Nerdcore. Fantastic film. It's Robin Williams in a completely different role that you would never imagine him to be. Like, he kind of gets under your skin pretty quick in that movie.
That's cool.
The film cemented Nolan's status as an auteur with his 3 films. While working on the Dark Knight trilogy, Nolan also released films like The Prestige and Inception. Since then, he released Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Tenet. His upcoming film, Oppenheimer, will be released this year on July 21st. And something I didn't include in there, Nolan usually does concentrate a lot of his themes on the metaphysical, like time, memory, human connections, and stuff like that. So that's usually what he likes to concentrate on, and it's been a reoccurring theme from his movies. I would say, especially since like Dunkirk. I'm sorry, Interstellar. I think Interstellar, he's like started to have like this really like big fascination with the way that time works, and he's kind of done it in both Dunkirk and a lot in Tenet. So we'll see what he does with Oppenheimer. But yeah, that is Christopher Nolan. Um, Nolan to me is one of the. At one point he was the greatest modern director, and then somebody by the name of Denis Villeneuve came through and decided to show him like, yep, no, I'm the greatest right now. He's an incredible filmmaker. He like, it's crazy how much of the 2000s were ruled by that man. If you didn't know about the Dark Knight trilogy, you knew about, you were living under a rock or something.
That was me.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, it's not you. No. This man is he has cemented himself. He's an incredible filmmaker. But of course, he does he has gotten really like, I don't know, complacent, and in some ways like really like kind of up his own ass sometimes. And when it comes to stuff like his mixing and stuff, he really doesn't want to like mess with that. And like, I liked Tenet. I don't know. Did you ever watch Tenet?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think about Tenet?
I liked it. I think I had to watch it at least twice to be like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a really I like his films, obviously. Like when you listed off all those movies, I was like, oh my gosh, I've seen almost every single one of his movies. Like I guess
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christopher Nolan stan, I
Yeah.
guess.
The only one I've never seen is Following. I've never seen Following. That's his
Okay.
first movie he's ever made. But I'm sorry, the Following and The Prestige. I've never seen The Prestige, even though
Okay.
everybody tells me to watch The Prestige.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that movie. I feel like I didn't particularly like the ending just because I was like, okay, like, but
Kind of underwhelmed.
if you, to me, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It was interesting. It's still like a like a twisty movie,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that's Mr. Christopher Nolan. I'm glad that somebody finally got to bring him onto this show, bring him up, because I was actually surprised. We've done how many episodes now? It's like almost like 60 some, and nobody ever chose a Christopher Nolan movie. But I thought maybe somebody would choose Interstellar. Interstellar is one of my favorite movies of all time. That's
Yeah. That's Nathan's favorite movie of all time, and I'm really surprised. I think he was like trying to figure out where he wanted to go with like his conversations,
we
and but He loves Interstellar.
We would have easily gone 2 hours and 30 minutes with that movie. There was no way that I was about to just no. Like I would have had to cut it off at one certain point in time. Like, hey, dude, like we can't. We gotta cut this down, man. But God, maybe you see what's it called when it comes to the scheduling for this. I always look at like a certain like I'll look at a movie and I'll be like, okay, this movie I know that we will have a really like rich conversation. This can be the season finale. Maybe if Nathan wants to do Interstellar next season and nobody else chooses anything that I feel like we would have a more meatier, like more of a meaty conversation. Maybe I'll choose that to be the season
Yeah,
finale. But
he would love that. We've watched that movie so many times ever since we first started dating. Like he would fall asleep to that movie and I would just like wake up when the guy's like, "Come on, Tars. Come on, Tars." And I just like wake up and it's like the dramatic music and I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" I'd be like half asleep.
yeah,
And also fun note, I had him walk down the aisle to our in our wedding to the theme song in that movie. So, yeah.
I wish I would have been there for that, but I had to take care of my brother.
No, you're
Oh,
good.
I wish I would have been able to see that. Oh man, what a great movie though.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's God. I love that. I love that movie. I give or take. I stopped counting after 15. How many times I've seen that movie?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I am willing to bet that that's my most rewatched movie to the point that my old Blu-ray doesn't play anymore.
No
Yeah, I
way.
had to upgrade to the 4K copy because I didn't what's it called my old Blu-ray doesn't work. And when I bought that movie too, I bought the Walmart special edition, so I'm still
Wow.
keeping it. I didn't like give it away or anything because it's like a really nice glossy case and everything.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, I've seen this movie so many times that I haven't what's it called? It doesn't play anymore.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, but you chose Memento, and I do have a little bit of notes here that I want to introduce our film to them for with. So the development of Memento goes all the way back to 1996 when the Nolan brothers took a cross-country trip from Chicago to Los Angeles. Jonathan pitched the story to Christopher Nolan, who responded enthusiastically to the idea. After Jonathan went back to continue his schooling at Georgetown University, sorry about that, y'all. Christopher repeatedly asked for a first draft of the screenplay, in which Jonathan finally complied. 2 months later, Christopher Nolan came up with the structure of the film and started working on the screenplay, while his brother worked on the short story at the same time. Something I forgot to put in there as well. While they were doing that, they actually would talk to each other and give each other like updates on how they were going on, the script side versus the actual short story that Jonathan Nolan was working at the same time. I thought that was really cool, and it reminds you of the way that what we talked about on on the episode with Nathan, where Joel and Ethan Cohen were like writing the script. One brother had the book open, was reading and giving them lines and stuff and from the book, while the other one was really writing the script. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the film and short story vary differently from each other and their approach to Leonard, the main character. In July 1997, after his girlfriend later turned wife showed the script to a producer, Nolan would receive a $9 million budget to make Memento. Brad Pitt apparently, and I put there that him and a bunch of other actors, but Brad Pitt was actually the first choice. It was actually tied to this film. And in ways, when I watch this movie, I think that Guy Pearce is Brad Pitt. Because every single time I see this movie, I'm like, you cannot tell me that that's not supposed to be Brad Pitt. But scheduling conflicts happened, and Brad Pitt had to drop out of the film. Uh, but also, Charlie Sheen, Alec Baldwin, Aaron Eckhart, and Thomas Jane were all at one point considered to play Leonard before it went to Guy Pearce. Nolan cast Carrie Ann Moss after being impressed with her performance as Trinity in The Matrix, which, by the way, y'all, if you want some lore on Raul, Trinity, I believe, was the first. Carrie Ann Moss was my first celebrity crush.
I love that.
When I watched The Matrix for the first time, I fell in love. I fell in love. And then Raul watched Matrix Reloaded, and there was like a really hot and steamy sex scene in that movie, and there's something else awakened in Raul in that too. But yeah, that Trinity, yeah, I love Carrie Ann Moss. She's one of my favorite actresses, and she's fantastic. Steven Tobolowsky was cast because Nolan thought the role of Sammy was perfect for him, since he actually suffered from amnesia in real life. Thus, Memento premiered on September 5th, 2000 at the Venice International Film Festival and would launch the career of one of the greatest storytellers of all time. Marissa, before we actually get into the conversation, why did you choose Memento? I know you gave a little bit of insight before, but why?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm kind of new to film appreciation, so to speak. So when my husband has this huge list of movies that he wants to show me because I haven't seen any film ever, essentially. And so I he showed me this film, and I had seen previously movies like Inception. um, I had seen, Interstellar probably at that point because, like I said, he watched it like 15 million times before. Um, and I had seen Gone Girl. I don't know, I think it was, like, during our early stages of dating where he was, like, talking about all these movies, so I was like, maybe I'll just try to watch some movies on my own, have something to talk about with this guy that I like. And so I watched Gone Girl and I loved that film. So when he showed me this movie, I was like, oh my god, like, this is amazing, and I figured this out about myself. I love thriller movies. I can't stand, like, horror or gory or anything like scary on that sense, but I love thriller, anticipation. I love twisted movies. Like, if there's anything predictable about a movie, I'm just like, I'd rather go to sleep. Like, it is so hard for me to commit to watching movies because I'll always ask Nathan, he's like, "Do you wanna watch this movie?" And I'm like, "How long is it?" He's like, "It's over 2 hours." I'm just like, "Uh-uh." It's, like, so hard for me to, like, sit still long enough to
Mm-hmm.
be, like, encapsulated by a movie, and this film does that for me. So,
I mean, understandable. I This is one of my favorites from him. It's one of my movie that to me also kind of opened my eyes to the way that we can play with like narratives and stuff like that. I remember watching this as a watching this for the first time as a college student, and I was like, oh, I was starting to explore bits and pieces of what filmmaking can be and what the cinematic language is at times, and I was like, oh, this is like really interesting, and like, but at that time I had already seen Interstellar, I had seen Inception, um, the Dark Knight trilogy, so I kind of knew a little bit of what this guy was doing, but I didn't know about this movie. I didn't watch this one, and I was like, okay, and then we watched it for a review for the Nerdcore with Brad, and I was just like, oh man, like there's like he's really like for it being his second movie and literally adapting it from a story that his brother pitched him that wasn't even complete at the time. He really did create this really like I don't want to call it a foundation, but more so like an introduction to what his his cinematic language is and what Nolan kind of brings to the table. And I always love Guy Pearce's performance in this. Like Guy Pearce is so good in this movie. Carrie Ann Moss is really good too.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I was shocked when I read that like Tobolowsky was actually like suffering from amnesia. I
I
was like,
did
what
not
the
know
fuck?
that. That's
Yeah,
so crazy.
yeah. Which makes it I feel like even more heartbreaking to see those scenes with him and his wife.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, no way. Like you really oh man.
Like, is he acting at that point? No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, I really hope he's not giving his
Yeah.
wife insulin shots. But yeah, I mean, this movie is I love this movie. And like I always say, like what do I always say on every episode? I say that like it doesn't really matter whether I like the movie or not because I what's it called? I will talk about anything as you can tell before like these episodes. There's like a ton of them. They're like some movies I think they're great, they're good, and some I think like there's some that I was like on, but this movie does hold a pretty special place in my heart, at least when it comes to what opened my eyes to like movies being something more than just an avenue of entertainment. And there's like, oh, there's movies that can make you think. There's movies that
Yeah.
can open your eyes to like understanding more about what it is to be human.
Yeah, I totally understand that cuz like I said, like I would just never have the want or need to like sit and watch a movie, but this like opened me up to like, wow, film is kind of amazing. And there's like aspects of film that I have already appreciated. I love music. I wanted to be like a video game composer. So I always appreciate music in movies. And then, like, after I graduated college, I was like, maybe I could make like set pieces or props or, do set design for movies and film and TV or commercials or whatever. So I always love like those aspects of movies, but like this film in particular just like twisted my whole brain into like, oh my God, like storytelling is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It really opens your eyes. Like, wow, we've been doing these things called stories for like so long, and like this is like wow, this is revolutionary. Like stories have been around for so long, like Neanderthal
Right.
times. Like drew pictures, and they would tell a story on the tape, and it's like all those years later, and we're still kind of reinventing the wheel here.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's so refreshing. It's so cool. And especially like for us like not seeing it back in like the 90s when or
yeah,
like 2000 when it came out, but like um seeing it after seeing such revolutionary films like
yeah.
Inception or Interstellar, like and still having the effect on us, like that's a timeless film.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, oh wow, like okay, I see where he got this from. And like, oh,
Yeah.
I see like why he likes to do this specific thing, and yeah. But yeah, I guess that's just how it goes when it comes to this movie. I'm glad you chose it though. I really am. But
Thanks.
without a further ado, Marissa, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready to, at least to an extent, right? Because this we're gonna go right off the bat into this movie that can get a little confusing, but we're both ready. This is our conversation on Christopher Nolan's Memento. So I'd be remiss if we don't start this episode right off the bat talking about the structure of this movie, because it is probably the most famous thing about this movie. Because yeah, he really did just go right off the bat and be like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna give you something really confusing." And it's funny because I remember when the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why came out. Um, and everybody was complaining that like, oh man, if it wasn't for that one character having a mark on him, I wouldn't know what if we're in the past or in the present in this show. And people were just like, dude, you would hate Memento. But and I was like, oh my god. I mean, it's kind of true, guys. I was like, but this show kind of sucks. But I was like, but when it comes
Yeah.
when we were talking about that instance, I was like, you guys are really complaining about the fact that you don't know whether you're in the past or present. Like, this is not as abstract as you think. Now, this fucking
Right.
movie here is like
Right.
really confusing sometimes. And I'm glad that like this is the third time I watch it, because now I can finally sit there and be like, okay, I know where this is going. I know how this works
Right.
now. But
Yeah.
basically, the way that it's explained and the way that Nolan kind of explains it, the structure is very nonlinear. Um, Everything that's in color up to the point when the black and white part of the film turns into color is told in reverse chronological order. So it's basically backwards. Whereas all the scenes you see in black and white leading up to when that goes to color are all chronological order. They're told as it goes. When the film goes from black and white to color, it is when the narrative becomes complete, and it basically creates our path going into the ending and everything. Yeah. Now, that doesn't even begin to explain if how it makes sense and everything, but that is the structure. And I wanted to kind of probe your thoughts here, where we go into this movie and we're like, I understand why he does it like this, and I think it is 100% understandable that we do it so we can get into the mindset of our character here, because Leonard suffers from I can't remember what the term is, but he's like some sort of amnesiac,
Yeah,
basically like
like short-term memory, like
yeah,
hardcore.
yeah. So basically somebody raped and murdered his wife, and they hit him over the head really hard, which caused him to lose his short-term memory. And he can remember, like the way he explains it is like, I remember, like, what this feels like. He'll pick up like a glass and be like, I know what this feels like, or like, I know what this feels like. But he can't create new memories of like meeting certain people. Like, so like throughout the film, Carrie Ann Moss's character, um, what's his the guy who works at the hotel, at the motel, and then like the guy Teddy, who's like leading him through like all this work and stuff. He can't remember who they are when he wakes up, but he goes ahead and he tattoos like important information about the people and like what he's doing on him, and he takes pictures and he'll write information on there. But it all is to like create this idea of like us being inside the mind of this man who is like can't hold down his short-term memory. But what do you think about when it comes to the structure, like, and really the approach of this like non-linear story?
It is brilliant. I haven't seen the movie since I first saw it, so I just rewatched it this week to
Hmm.
prep.
I was about to say,
um,
dude, please don't tell me you didn't watch the movie at all. Like,
no,
you told me in the
no.
messages you
So
did.
so this is the second time that I've seen it, but I still like it was almost fresh. Like I remembered the overall like concept of the movie, right? But I didn't remember like specifics. So
Hmm.
watching it again, it's really like just so interesting to see that like we get maybe like 5-minute scenes of things, and that's essentially his memory span, and then it
Hmm.
goes back to the black and white, and it is more of like a internal monologue in
Hmm.
those scenes that really like gives us the information that we need about his condition, about his past. And that's kind of like thrown in between those different like time lapses where he's having like a reset in his brain.
Yeah.
So we are like receiving key information as the movie goes on that like makes it make sense, but then it's like it still doesn't make sense. Which
Yeah.
is just like crazy.
And to be fair, like, I feel like that's what it would feel like for somebody who has to suffer through this. It's like, yeah, this my life doesn't actually make sense sometimes with the way I
Yeah.
process these things, and it's like the structure is a little odd and it is a little hard to follow at times, but I think that's more so the point. Like,
Exactly.
because Leonard's journey isn't the most linear, thorough thing. He's battling with the idea of like remembering exactly why he wants to kill this man who hurt his wife and killed her. But then he's also like remembering the fact of like Sammy, and whether like Sammy might even be a real thing or not, if it was a real person. And these, stuff that's in color and like all these reverse stuff is like the stuff that like may not even be real, because he doesn't even remember these people. Like, are we even seeing something that was actually constructed? Like, or is this a memory that he's like, I think I remember it this way? And
Right.
I think that's where the structure really comes into play. And it's like, yeah, I think it's supposed to be messy. It needs to be messy. It doesn't have to be like completely linear for you, and it doesn't need to, what's it called, present everything as it goes. And I mean, it does work a lot well, like as a internal monologue, especially because like this is a noir. I mean, for those of y'all who may not know what a noir is, you're basically, this would be a neo noir. I'm sorry, a neo noir. Whereas noir were certain films from the 60s. I'm sorry, from like the 40s until 67, I think. Um, when basically you had films that were mostly detective films, and there was always a femme fatale in it. There was always a fatal woman, the woman that would bring the downfall of the man in the movie. And They were always shot with high contrast film in black and white, so it looked like it was very grimy, very like dark, and it always created like an atmosphere of being like the mysterious detective who is trying to solve a crime, but at the same time is being tempted by the fatal woman who is going to bring his downfall. And that was the original, but also at the same time, it's supposed to provide commentary on the American culture and the American experience. And then the neo noir genre is birthed with the Roman Polanski's Chinatown in the late 60s or early 70s. I can't remember. So don't go and get mad at me, y'all. But, but I can't remember. And neo noir changes. It's still very much focusing a little bit more on the whole detective side. But now you're playing with, with superhero films, you're playing with science fiction films, and Nolan kind of does that in here too, because this is a straight up neo noir, 100%. He does it with the black and white films. Well, I think there's two femme fatales in this movie. I think Carrie Ann Moss's character and his wife are both the femme
Yeah.
fatales, and he's a detective who's also what's it called? His downfall is the fact that he is suffering from freaking short-term memory loss,
Yeah.
and but he, like I said, Nolan approaches the structure and the genre of noir here by giving us what we would expect at the end in the beginning. And it's like, yeah, because we're kind of experienced the movie backwards. We're like, we're going where the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I after rewatching it, the first scene that we see is played in reverse, and I was just like, "That's like Tenet. That's like literally he like fell in love with that, and he's like, I'm gonna make a whole movie
Yeah.
about this scene in particular."
But at least in this movie, cars aren't actually driving backwards. And where I
Yeah, it was just a photo being developed
yeah,
in
it's a photo
reverse.
being developed in reverse. In this one, he didn't make a car. What's it called? Like all the cars
Oh
drive
my god.
backwards.
So crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we have yet to see how crazy he can get. He recreated a whole bomb and a whole
So
explosion for Oppenheimer. So we will see how deep the rabbit hole he can get with his craziness. But yeah, the structure really lends to like really interesting ways that you can dissect these characters, and especially in the way that they kind of treat Leonard. One of the movies, one of the scenes that always stands out to me is when Carrie Ann Moss's character is she's coming back after meeting up with John G, right, and she's like like, oh man, like I got hurt and stuff, and she's basically like telling him off and being like, I can tell you all these nasty things, and then you won't remember it. And she like gets punched
yeah.
by Leonard, and she goes back to the car, and he's like desperately trying to find a pen so that we can write the fact that he's being used by this character, this woman. And then she comes back in, and it's just like, oh, now I get to make up this other thing, like, oh, I got beat up by this one guy, and which leads to him taking on her little vendetta to kill
Yeah.
that other guy that yeah, it's like the structure really lends to like showing how like some of these people are really really using Leonard.
Yeah, so manipulative. It's so crazy. That scene is so heartbreaking. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, "Ah, no!" Like, oh my gosh. And then like obviously I expected it in this time, but it's so interesting because like you see her take the pens because you know that
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really know like how long he's known her, so to speak, or how long they've been like doing this for, but she knows him to write down his things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she takes all of the pens and it's just like it's so brutal.
Yeah, yeah, and to an extent, I think this will go really nicely into our next topic here. They're all kind of taking advantage of Leonard because, and he's going through a lot of grief. Um, I mean, this man, like, well, that we are aware of, somebody hurt his wife and killed her. Um, but at the end, it's kind of like being told like, did that actually happen? Like maybe she, what's it called? You killed her, and like you what's it called, forgot to give her the insulin shot, give her the insulin shots and stuff. You know, he leaves it ambiguous as to how it works, but the fact is that Leonard is going through a lot of grief. Um, and it opens the doors for people to kind of take advantage, not just about the grief, but the whole idea of memory in this movie, and the way that people are like, being like, okay, because this guy is can't remember anything from the day before, I'm allowed to like tell him to like to make up these things and make him go and kill this guy, or make him join me and like do these work for me, so that way that we can make some money, but also what's it called, the next day I could just make up a thing and be like, oh no, we didn't do that, like we got to go and do this again, and basically take advantage of this poor man who just he just wants to get over his wife's death. That's all.
Right. Yeah, and he says something that's so beautiful. It's like during the part where he's laying in the room with Carrie Ann Moss's character, and he says like out loud, he's like, "How can I heal from my wounds if I have no perception of time? Like I have no idea how long my wife has even been dead. I have no idea if like how do I recover from this? If that's like the only thing driving him is this like the seek for revenge or even avenging his wife. And
Yeah,
like and it's so interesting because like at the end of the movie, Teddy kind of tells him like, "Oh, you got the guy, right?" And that didn't like fill that need to be like satisfied for him because he just ended up forgetting anyway.
yeah. Like yeah, and he tells like he did it like years ago, right? Like almost two
Yeah.
years ago, you got this guy, and it still didn't, what's it called, it didn't satisfy you, and like you wanted to basically, what's it called, keep going, and you wanted to find more people that like wronged you, and what's it called, and eliminate that from your life. And I think that is such a beautiful part in the movie too, where he like says that, because it's kind of it's true, like if you have no perception of the way how long it's been, how are you supposed to heal when you don't know whether this happened yesterday or it happened like 5 years ago?
Yeah, and especially on that, like, literally your last memory that is feeling you is your most traumatic memory,
Yeah,
like, there's no getting out of that.
yeah, and it's
Oh
yeah,
god.
and it's they always say like, oh, time heals all, right? Like time heals all, and it's like the body will always remember, but how is the body supposed to remember when like the part that is supposed to be controlling the body and is the one that like gives out information to it is not working correctly, and it just leaves Leonard to kind of have to be satisfied or not satisfied with the fact that he might not ever be able to remember if he was able to avenge his wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, like that just made, like, a thought of mine, and I would love to see, like like this movie like after the fact, right? Where he like wakes up or like has a memory reset and he's like an old man. Like,
Yeah.
do you think like at any point he would ever stop or be like, dude, it's obviously been a really long time. I got wrinkles and gray hair. Like,
I don't know, because like at the end he kind of brings up the fact that like whether or not I have perception about what I'm doing, about what's happened, I am okay with the fact that these are my actions and this is what I'm doing. And I feel like that kind of lends to the idea that like he might not ever get away from this, and he might be stuck in this infinite loop of doing all these things to avenge somebody who he's probably not going to, what's it called, ever get over, because he's not going to
yeah.
be able to forget.
Yeah, and it is kind of funny that you say that because at the very end when we like realize what's going on and then we like put it all together, he sets himself up. So it's almost like he is doing it to himself because he
Yeah,
literally did. He's like, okay, anybody can be a John G. You're my next John G. And he gets the license plate tattoo and then he's on a chase to find the guy that he's working with. So
yeah,
it's like self destruction, really.
yeah, yeah. Self destruction to like the utmost. Like, and it's crazy because like that's a different way to look at what how self destruction comes after grief. Like there's people who like, well, um, fall down the route of alcoholism or drug
Right.
addiction, and you know, self harm, or and all these different things that could come out of the trauma. Whereas this guy just simply is like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill people. It's like whether you harmed me at one point, and like it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna kill you. Like at that point, it's like I don't know whether you're tied to my wife. If you just you harmed me in one way, like you're just up next, and it's a
Yeah.
very unhealthy way
And
of
it's wild though too because, like, he doesn't have any repercussions from that, right? He has no guilt for killing those people. He has no sadness. He has no relationship. Even if he had been working with Teddy for 2 years, like, it doesn't matter because he doesn't really know him. So, to
yeah.
him, he has no, like, repercussions.
No, he has no repercussions, and he's kind of, and I think that's also why it makes him like the more I wouldn't say what's it called quintessential, but I'd say one of the more interesting figures in like this type of genre that Nolan's working with, because like yeah, you do have a down on your luck, detective here, but you also have a psychopath who's not willing to know that he's a psychopath because he can't remember what happened before, and because of that, it allows him to not have a moral compass at all. He doesn't have a moral compass. He's
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that because, like, in the film, he basically is trying to, like, convince himself that he's a good person, that he trusts facts, not memories, like, and that all of the facts that he's writing down are, like, the Bible, are, like, the law, right?
yeah,
When, like, then at the end, you see the fact number 6 or whatever that he writes down, the license plate is literally just him making it for himself to give himself a reason to be a shitty person.
yeah. And that approach, that's a really interesting approach to the way that the memory works in this movie. So like his tattoos, his like Polaroids, and he likes so he'll snap a picture, right, and then he'll like write these things and be like, oh, don't trust Teddy. Teddy's like trying to what's it called set you up. He's only using you, and like obviously he didn't write anything for Natalie because Natalie, he didn't get the chance to write it, but Natalie has her faults too. Does he take a picture of the hotel guy or
No, he doesn't take a picture of the front desk guy,
no?
no.
No, but he does mention him to like tell him to like to hold calls for him. Like don't like
Mhm.
what's it called? Let him know if somebody's coming calling because he's not gonna remember at all and like write it down for him. Um, Also, I think it's also kind of fucked up when he meets Natalie for the first time and they do the whole like the spit in the what's it called?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, it's disgusting, disgusting. But
Yeah, that's nasty.
it's nasty. I and like the old guy in the bag is just laughing and is like, yeah,
Yeah.
fuck. And you can tell that like when he drank, he was kind of like it's kind of salty. Yeah, but
Tastes kinda like boogers.
it tastes kind of like boogers, right? Also, yeah, Natalie, she put in a little more spit than the other two were doing. Like she put a whole like fucking like she was holding that shit in there, and she put more in there, which is like so disgusting. But that's getting off track. But yeah, like he does see all these things to like try to remember, but it to an extent, to an extent it works, and to an extent it doesn't work. I mean, he's still kind of like unsure of like how any of this is working and whether it is even the right information. I
Right.
guess.
Yeah, and I love that you said that he's, like, writing stuff down because as we see from the end of the movie, we see him with all of the pictures that he's taken because we're at the end of the movie at the beginning. Are you
Hmm.
still with me? I'm just kidding.
Have I confused y'all yet?
Um, but he has all the pictures, and then you see, like, especially on Natalie's picture, he writes 2 things on the back, but then one of them is, like, redacted. He
Hmm.
scribbles it out, and so you can see, like, some of these characters, like, he had opinions of them,
Yeah.
then got other information that we don't know yet, the audience doesn't know yet, and then so you can kind of, like, piece together, like, when okay, so it's showing him writing down these facts, like, when are we gonna get to the first one that he then redacted? Like, it's just, like it's such a mysterious thing that we're presented all this information, and
Yeah.
kind of similarly with, like, his crazy detective work in his hotel room where he's looking through the police files, and a
Yeah,
lot of that is redacted too. So he's like working with partial information, like literally the whole time.
yeah.
And he's like trying to make facts out of it, and it's just problematic.
It's problematic. I mean, because like, also, how is he gonna? When is he gonna remember any of this information? Like, and like, even like, we have to understand, like, even the small stuff, like, like some of the small information that he's probably taking in and he's redacting is like that could actually be useful information for you to
Yeah.
find out who it was, even though, like they say, like the guy got killed like 2 years ago, and um, but
Right. Yeah, on that note, I wrote a note and I'm like, okay, if because at one point when he's in the diner, I think, or whatever with Teddy, he's like bragging about his like that memories aren't the only thing, like facts are the real thing, whatever, or like he trusts his own memories more than whatever else. So I just feel like he should have been a little bit more organized. Like he has all these Polaroids. Why doesn't he get a pocket calendar and be like, "Okay, like this is what year it is. This is when my wife died. Like how long have I been here?" Like I get that
yeah,
he doesn't have an iPhone, but like calendars existed then. Like
this is Marissa trying to tell
newspapers.
Chris Nolan, "Hey man, you could have just used the planner."
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a planner, Chris?
Uh,
But
poor Lanny.
and in a way, I think like when he says that, it's kind of true about like memories. It's like we only gonna remember things like how we remember them, and to an extent, humans are kind of really what's it called susceptible to only believing what we remember in our in our lived experiences. Um,
Yeah.
and it's why some of us are, it's why some people are easily to be manipulated, and why some are what's it called, you know the manipulators, because they're like, oh, they're the ones who remember things a certain way, and they're the ones who are willing to enact it the way that they remember it, because that's not the way it happened to them, and that's not the way that they perceived the whole situation at hand. And you could tell Leonard like all these different things, but Leonard at the end of the day is gonna always be reminiscing about how he remembered his wife. He remembers her as the woman that he fell in love with, as the person that that was taken away from him. And if you were to present him with this information of like, maybe you were a shitty husband, maybe you actually were the one who killed her, and this whole Sammy person isn't even real, that won't matter to Leonard, because his memory only allows him to remember it how he perceived it. And there's
Yeah.
nobody to contradict that for him.
Yeah, and I wanna say the characters are, like, so good at saying whatever they need to say to, like, get him to think about things differently, you know what I mean? Like, because
Mm-hmm.
he wrote down the thing about Natalie, and then Teddy says something, and then he's like, "Oh, no, like, I should trust Natalie after all, like, she's a really good person, and don't trust Teddy." So, like, it just, like, goes back
Yeah.
and forth by, like, people whispering in his ears and, like, him being able to like write certain things down at that moment, and it just totally messes up like the flow of like where he thought he was going with his
Yeah.
mission.
Yeah, it 100% does. It's why it's easier for him to cross Teddy, right? And why it's easier for him to kill him, because, like, what Natalie never gave him information like that about Teddy. And he's just like, hey, like, this John G guy was the one who, like, hurt me. And he's like, okay. So, like, John, what's it called? Teddy says about Natalie, and he's like, okay, wait, never mind. Maybe I should think about it this way. And like, no, actually, she's actually a good person to me. Like, she's been housing me, she's been feeding me, she's like been looking after me. She like, even though we see that she doesn't always treat him right,
Right.
she's still what's it called? And I think to an extent, if I, this is also where it gets really good. I think to an extent that Leonard does feel something for Natalie. Whether he can remember if he feels something for her is another question.
Yeah, he like there is a scene in there where she like kisses him for like the first time that we see, and
Yeah.
then she's like, "I think you will remember me." but, you know, it's kind of like almost unspoken or like unresolved there of like whether or not he would
Yeah.
be able to, but yeah.
But she also says like when they're fighting, right? She says like, "You don't even remember how long we've been together,"
Yeah.
and it's like, "Oh, okay." There actually is like something there, right? And like, and for some reason, it also reminded me about like 50 First Dates from.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it's true. Like, this poor man is like, how would he ever be able to like hold down an actual real relationship with this woman that might be what's helping him move on from his wife if he can't even remember if he has feelings for her or not.
He has to fall back in love with her every 10 minutes.
At that point, just lock me up. Put me in the asylum.
Right.
Put me
Right.
in the
That's what I
asylum.
was telling Nathan. I'm like, I don't think they would ever let somebody with like that severe of a condition like drive a car. Like
No.
this guy's just rooming around town wherever he wants. Like it's
Imagine
just
being on the highway and not
crazy.
being able to remember what speed limit it is. All of a
Oh
sudden, you're
my
going 20,
god.
or like going through a school zone, and you're like, "Oh, I forgot. What was the school? What's the
Dude,
miles speed
yeah.
limit for a school zone? Fuck
Yeah.
it, we'll just floor it. I need to get home." Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, but there is a lot of instance in this movie about like the idea of like and I think we already kind of like talked about it, like healing through time, and like the whole idea of like what time heals all. There's wounds that obviously that Leonard's never gonna forget because it's his last memories of his long term memory, so he's not ever gonna be able to get through that. And it doesn't help that he has all these things tattooed on him that will also remind him in a way about like where about what happened to him. Um, Also, I would hate to like bring up the idea of like being like saying like, Leonard, why don't you just go to therapy? Well, is he even gonna remember therapy at that point?
No, he would not.
Yeah, no, he's
But
not.
maybe he should have got more like therapeutic tattoos, like let it go or it's okay. Like maybe take like 1 minute of this 10 minutes that you get to like process everything again and then go live your life for the rest of the 9 minutes.
Yeah, but I feel like like then that also brings up a different question I would give you. It's like, does he want to even let go? Like,
Yeah.
because like
And
this
that's
kind of gives him purpose, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think that he does. And like the whole time in the movie up until the end, you're like, "Oh man, I feel for this guy. I feel for this guy. Like can't believe people are manipulating him and like they're lying to him. They're twisting his words, like they're twisting his thoughts on other people and like making him kidnap other guys." But at the end, he does it to himself. So
Yeah,
it's like he doesn't want to. Like he's a very intelligent person, right? Like he has all these like collected thoughts and ideas and like he is kind of organized to some extent, right? With all the tattoos and like trying to work with what he has as far as his condition goes.
hmm,
Um but he's just it is like I said, he's just very self-destructive. Like he's smart but not he doesn't want to help himself with his intelligence. He wants
yeah.
to just try to resolve this ever lasting need for revenge.
And to an extent, you would you think it's like kind of like self deception? He's the one who's making this like, he's deceiving
Yeah.
himself. You know?
Yeah, and there's a lot of conversation in the movie about especially between him and Teddy where Teddy's like, "You don't know who you are. You don't know." And like Teddy does cuz he's been with him for like the past
Yeah,
year or so, like that he knows and he's been like setting him to like kill all these guys. He's like, "I know you're a murderer. You don't know that. You don't know who you are." And like even at the end when he's confronting him about Sammy, he's like, "Is that even real? Do you know your wife had diabetes and your wife needed
yeah,
insulin?" And he's like, "No." Like, so he has no idea of like who he even is.
yeah. That also like that's so interesting because it's like, did you create like? Of course, we create things to like help us, cope with the things in our lives, which is being like, oh, is it possible for you to create memories then that that never happened? to make up for the fact that you can't remember what happened 10 minutes ago. And
Oh my god.
yeah, and it's because because he's deceiving himself. He
Yeah.
doesn't, to an extent, he doesn't trust himself.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's, like, his internal way of, like, deflecting and not taking responsibility for his actions.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, like, just having some kind of, like, made up scapegoat, which would be Sammy Jankis, like, making that the reason that
Yeah.
he thinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
I also don't believe he's even talking to a police officer during
Who do
that.
you think he's talking to?
I think he's probably talking to Teddy. I think he's
That's
talking
what I think too.
Teddy or Natalie.
Okay.
Teddy or Natalie. I don't think he's talking to a police officer because
Yeah.
100%, the minute that fucking what's it called, the police officer hears that he's trying to kill someone, I think that police officer would have just hung up the phone and been like, "Dog,
We're gonna come get you. Like,
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna go
get you,
get
bro."
you.
Yeah, like whoever's in the other end of that line is definitely not someone in law enforcement.
I wonder if it was, like, just the little receptionist guy, you know?
That's also another good one because remember he's holding his calls for him,
Right.
so I feel like he probably like it is the receptionist, and he's kind of like, "Dude, who the fuck is staying in my hotel right now?"
Yeah. Gonna charge him for another room.
Yeah, well, he does move him to another room, right? He
Yeah, he
moves him to,
does. Yep.
yeah, but yeah, he moves him to another room. But yeah, Leonard deceives himself. Um, and that's mostly a lot because of the fact that he can't remember, right? But he doesn't he trusts some people to an extent, but he doesn't what's it called trust himself. Um, Even though at the end he's willing to be content with the idea that he's not a good person, and he what's it called he might not remember what he's saying to himself in 10 minutes, but he's gonna definitely realize that, like, yeah, whatever's happening, it's okay.
Like, I've done it to myself, basically.
I'm doing it to myself. At least I'm not doing it to the woman that I love anymore.
Yeah, that's very true. It's like, yeah, it's like his way of coming to terms with everything. It's almost like a weird, like, sick, twisted, like, way of him, I guess, like, processing what he needs to process. It's so fucked up.
Yeah, it is very fucked up, don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
you have to like beat yourself up and go through like having to witness like people that you meet go through like domestic violence, and like you have to witness like this guy who is using you to kill people and make money off of you, which I'm willing to believe that fucking Teddy never gave him at least a good amount of what he was owed for those missions that they
Oh,
did.
absolutely
I,
not.
yeah, I'm willing to bet that Teddy kept a lot of that money,
Yeah.
and that's why he's still living in a freaking motel and hasn't.
Yeah.
Because if he's been doing this for 2 years with Teddy, he had to have made money to get himself a house. Like, I'm willing
Yeah.
to bet that what's it called, Teddy's keeping a lot of that money, and it's messed up. Like all these things is like because you're like, okay, I obviously don't trust. Like I can easily in these 10 minutes learn to not trust this person, but then what's it called, in the next 10 minutes I might get the information that will make me want to trust this other person.
Yeah. It's wild.
It really is. It really is. Um, but it's Leonard's a really complex guy when it comes to that. I think whoever actually did do that to his wife, and whether like if we go by the way the narrative worked, I hope that whoever actually hurt his wife and killed her and hit him over the head really did die a painful death, because this guy is going through it because of the fact he can't remember shit right now. Like it, every time I see this, when I see this movie, I'm like, this dude is just having a bad day after a bad day, man.
I
Like I really hope this
know.
guy just. I hope whenever he killed that guy 2 years ago, he got what he deserved, because
Yeah.
my God, poor dude is just losing it.
I know. I know. He'll never, like he'll never, yeah,
He'll
never
never.
get back. Like, it's so sad.
It's so sad, right? And to an extent, will he be ever? Because I know they always say like just forgive and forget, right?
You can't
But you can't. You will be
can't remember to
can't
forget.
remember. You can't remember to
That's
forget.
what he says. He says that line, I think, in the movie. He's like, "I can't remember to forget
Yeah,
my, like, whole scenario." Like,
yeah,
it's just oh my gosh.
yeah.
So crazy.
Can you ever forgive? Okay, not just can you ever forgive the person who did it, but like, can you ever forgive yourself? For having to go
Yeah.
down this road, and that's the internal conflict. I think that's the internal conflict with Leonard throughout this whole movie. Is like whether does he trust himself? Does he forgive himself? And is he willing to move on when all of those things are being held on by the fact that he can't remember?
Yeah. I do wanna say some parts of the movie are really funny.
Yes, yes, there are really funny parts in this movie that are actually really because Nolan's known for his very like dry sense of humor sometimes. There's like parts in like Dunkirk that are like to me are actually kind of like they're like little liners, they're like one liners that are like, oh, that's funny. In like
Yeah.
Nolan's own little way, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Did you
And I
write down
feel like
anything that you
yeah,
found?
so, like, literally the phrase, "I don't know," is used so comically because, like, we're presented, different sorts of information. So, like, we're seeing the end, then the middle, like, we're getting to what happened before. And so when the characters in, like, that scene say, "Well, what happened to Teddy?" And he's like,
I don't
"I don't
know.
know." Like, it's just so funny because it's like, "Oh, yeah, we don't know either." Like, that's
Yeah,
hilarious, like, and it's just comical because it's like, "Of course he doesn't know, like, why are you asking
yeah.
him?"
Why are you asking him that? Like you know that he's not gonna remember that. So why do you why
Yeah.
do you have to put the poor guy through that again? Like I'm gonna remember this.
Yeah, and then there's this scene where, like, he's like, running through the trailer park, and he's like, "Oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm chasing that guy." And then the guy shoots at him, and then he's like, "Oh, wait, that guy's chasing me." And then he just starts running the other way. It's just so
Yeah,
funny.
it's Nolan's dry humor. Like I remember in what's it called in Interstellar when like when Tars like picks him up and they take him into like the thing, and he's like like covers Murph's ear and he tells him like I just want to make sure that I don't wake up in the back of a truck with my pants down tomorrow, and it's like oh like you're it's Nolan's little dry humor that it's like not like it's not in your face, but it's like if you're not paying attention, you're really gonna miss a line that's actually gonna make you laugh.
Yeah. It's so, like, niche to that story and, like,
Yeah.
those characters. I love it. I love it.
I feel like that's a bit of what British humor is, though. It's kind of dry in a sense, and it's also like it's blink and you miss it type of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also there what's it called? It is funny, but there's also like a lot of instances in this movie where where I felt that maybe he was cutting away too fast from certain stuff. Um, I thought I was like, oh crap! Like, hey, bro, can we just stay on that photograph a little more, please? Don't cut too fast for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, I didn't get to see it, bro. Like,
But, Lenny's gonna forget, so we don't get to see it.
why should we remember it if he can't forget? If he
Yeah.
can't remember it,
Yeah.
yeah. But and that also is like why do you as the viewer feel like you're more entitled to know more about the structure of this movie if your own protagonist won't even remember any of this? It's like
Yeah.
it's it's kind of a very masochistic way to look at storytelling too.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. You have any other notes that you wanted to bring up? Because I
Um,
can tell you I'm done here with our topics, but if you have anything else that you wanted to bring up, we can go ahead and go through that before we end it.
well, I do wanna say that, like, his fact keeping is just so vague, where, like, he almost, like I don't know if he accidentally does it or purposefully does it because we see him purposefully write down the license plate at the end, but, like, fact 1 is, like, male, fact 2 is white, fact 3 is, like, J.G., John G., or James G., like,
James
whichever,
G.
and he it's just so funny to me because, like, afterwards, right, now that he has even, like, the license plate tattooed, I would imagine that Natalie and or whoever else is gonna be involved from here on out, because Teddy's gone, is going to forge license plates of just people with that name and that criteria that they want to murder. so that it,
Yeah,
like, makes sense in his head. Like, he's literally setting himself up for failure.
yeah. And I was also gonna say, to an extent, isn't that the justice system? It's so vague. What's the first thing they ask you when you like what's it called when you have to file a report? Can you describe the person?
Yeah, what did he look like?
Tall, white, was wearing a shirt.
Yeah,
You know,
a shirt.
yeah. I mean, it's
He
like
had a face.
it's kind of vague. It's like, okay, like what do you want me to do? Like you just saw me go through something, and you're expecting me to remember to write down like if the person had tattoos or not. It's like, did the
Right.
person have a messed up lip? Did he have a crooked
Yeah.
nose? Did he have slanted eyes? Like, what is it that you like? All the it's like, yeah, of course I'm being vague. Like, like also the way that trauma kind of affects the brain, right? It's
Oh, absolutely.
like
Like,
what? What do you want? What do you
yeah.
want him to do? Do you want him to remember all these things like when he just got hit over the freaking head? Like, of course he can't remember.
That's very true. That is very true.
Yeah, he's also he's on a 10-minute loop of mourning every single time. And it's like
Yeah.
that, in a way, is still affecting his brain, whether he's going to
Mhm.
remember it or not.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
tragic. Poor guy. Feel
Poor
so
Lenny,
bad for
man.
him.
Yeah. Lenny and, I mean, I feel bad, but it's also at the same time, like at the end, you already made your perception, bro. You said, I'm fine with being the person that I am.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, have you ever seen Inside Llewyn Davis?
No, I haven't.
Whereas I feel bad for that motherfucker. Talk about a movie where it's like a bad day after a bad day after a bad day. That movie is just one guy having the worst luck of all time. It's just like
Aw.
it's been a hard day for you, bro. That's what I describe that movie as. It's been a hard day. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're good with with our conversation, right? I think we went ahead and I think we talked a lot about it. Um I know we didn't really talk a lot about like the instances of the domestic violence in this movie. Um it does like you know Natalie does get beat up. I mean, he hits Natalie, which also kind of brings up the fact that like, yeah, if he was willing to punch her, who says that he wasn't doing that to his wife to begin with? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you know, also like who, because he has a he has a scar right here. Did we never
Yeah.
get? Do we ever get an explanation as to what that was?
I don't remember. I wanna say it might have even happened when he goes to, like, the guy's hotel room that Natalie wanted him to kill, and he's waiting there with,
Yeah,
like, the bottle. I don't know if it came from that fight or if it was there even before that, but
yeah,
yeah, got into
yeah.
some kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle. I've never heard that word before. Kerfuffle. But yeah. I mean, it's yeah. Those are the instances of domestic violence where I'm like, okay, that's interesting in the way that like that would make him like in a way the ultimate abuser, right? Like he can't even
Right,
remember if he
exactly.
like literally if you go and testify in the court of law, I'll be like, sir, I literally don't remember punching her. Like she's got a bruise, but
Yeah,
I don't remember it. Like what the
yeah.
hell? Like
And it's almost like he obviously has a track record for killing people, first of all, and second of all, violence against women. So it's like, okay, put those 2 things together and his wife's already dead.
it's like
Uh,
who do you like our perception of Leonard is not a good one. It's like I the facts keep coming in and we're kind of like, okay, we don't know whether we can trust Teddy and what he's telling us, but it's kind of making me think that this Leonard guy might have been the one who killed his wife.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
kind of like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Brad Pitt, where we get that scene. It's like, yeah, I think Brad Pitt's character killed his wife.
Yeah. I love
Oh,
that movie, by the way. It's one of my favorite movies.
yeah, I love that movie too. But that scene just always remind like the way he's looking at her too, and it's just like, yeah, I think he's killed his wife. It's safe to say that he killed his wife. But yeah, that concludes our conversation. I think we did a pretty good job, Marissa. What do
Me
you think?
too. It was so much fun.
Yeah, you see, we did good. I hope that you enjoyed our time. It was this. I will tell you this right now. This one was definitely better than the last time we were on a podcast.
Yeah, Very
Yeah,
true.
that's
I need
not.
to watch that one again. I'm gonna go find it
Don't ask me what
and
number
watch
it
it.
is. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't even remember what we talked about.
Me
I
neither.
don't even know. Was it video games?
Think it was video games, but
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's on the live show, so you're just gonna have to
Okay.
go down the live show playlist and check something off from 2020 or 2021.
Yeah. Oh my God, so long ago.
Yeah, yeah. But I appreciate you for coming on. I can't wait for you to come back next season. But before you get out of here, you do have a duty to piss somebody off. So let's go ahead and hear what is the movie that you're going to select for next season, Marissa.
Oh God. Okay, so I don't know. My husband and I were talking, and I was almost thinking like Pride and Prejudice because that's like one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's like a romantic movie. It is pretty like serious and has like pretty unique themes, and I don't know. It just something a little less crazy, a little less hectic.
All right. So you want to do Pride and Prejudice, and that would be the 2005 film, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because I know that movie's been like remade to hell and back.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 2005, the one with Keira Knightley.
Yes. Yes.
All right, y'all. There you go. You heard it here. Marissa's going to be returning to the cinema condition next season to discuss Pride and Prejudice 2005. Oh my gosh.
Who's pissed off about this now, huh? Come
Yeah,
at me.
yeah. I don't know. I've never seen Pride and Prejudice.
It's so good. I love it.
All right, we will get to watching that. But before we get out of here, do you want to let them know where they can find you and like the review crew and all that stuff?
Yeah, so you can find me personally on Instagram at @TheNameCop. That's Pokemans backwards. I also stream over on Twitch under the same username. Um, and then my husband and I, Nathan, we have our own YouTube channel where we review very bad movies and also, some more serious movies like you heard today. But yeah, we're working through our Fast and Furious franchise. So by the time this is up, we're probably going to be finished with the Fast X review. So we're just getting into the ridiculousness of that whole universe. So
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad that you did it because that's somebody else. That's somebody.
it's not for you.
Somebody else. I watch all your videos, but I'll tell you this right. Well, I haven't
Thank
watched
you.
the Puss in Boots one because I haven't finished watching the movie.
Yeah,
I haven't watched
yeah.
it, but you know, glad you're doing it because that ain't wouldn't be me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We have watched Fast 7 now. That's the last one that we watched, and I was just
Hmm.
like, "What the fuck?" Like, I'm just
There's a
whatever.
certain point in
So,
those movies where they just stop, where they throw out logic, they throw out everything out the window.
yeah.
Like who cares about creating a narrative that actually makes sense and you know
Yeah.
let's just it's yeah, it's everything I hate about the American what's it called, the American film system. Yeah,
And that's the good content.
yeah. Hey, it makes for interesting, entertaining videos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watch them, so I like them now. So y'all make sure y'all go ahead and check out the review crew. Of course, you can find me at the Nerd Chicano on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Letterboxd, and Serialized. Y'all gotta tell when is the review crew gonna make a letterbox, right? You gotta make a
Oh my
letterbox.
gosh. So we have our own individual ones, and
Oh
I
yeah.
just didn't know because like obviously I have 2 more weeks left of work right
Mhm.
now, but when you watch this, I'll be done. But like, I just haven't had time. I don't even have time to keep up with my own letterbox. Like, I'm
Yeah.
managing all of our socials,
Oh
like
yeah.
editing everything.
Editing.
So it's a
Damn, what
lot.
the hell does
So
Nathan do then?
I know.
He just decides to look pretty in front of the camera and that's it.
Yes, he makes all the jokes. Right now, he's great. He's been writing some of our scripts,
Okay, cool.
which has been so nice because then I can just, sit us down and film it and then I edit all of it. Right now, he's going to be working on learning how to edit and I'm just so proud of him and like the
Yeah.
steps that he's taking to like be more involved and stuff. It's so cool. Such an experience.
That's good. I'm glad that he's doing something. He's not just there like, yeah, you go ahead and do this because I'm not gonna do it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll put him in charge of the letterbox.
put them in charge of the letterbox app. Put down every movie that y'all watch together. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, guys, those socials, right? Of course, I also write reviews over at thenerdcore.com. Make sure you guys go check those out. And of course, our YouTube and our Twitch at the Nerdcore. It's the same handle on both of them. And stay tuned to like all the things that we're doing here, y'all. Especially if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and you leave a like on the video. Click the notification bell so you don't miss a single piece of content drops on the channel. I have like mostly my channel. It's like mostly dedicated to physical media and reviewing films from my collection. So if y'all enjoy physical media, that's where you can find all that content. So just drop by there. So yeah, audio side of things, make sure you're leaving a 5-star review on this podcast feed because it helps out a lot. It does. Also, I think we had a 5-star conversation, so you better drop a 5-star review.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. But with that said, I have told y'all that I'm not going to tell y'all what's next because I don't even remember what's next. But also keeps y'all guessing what's next, guys. Why am I going to tell y'all?
Keep him in the shadows.
Oh, and
Suspense.
before I forget, I am so sorry. If you want early access to this episode, along with exclusives like video essays, go over to patreon.com/thenerdchicano and pledge to our tiers there that we have available. You get to listen to this episode months in advance, actually, before it drops. So y'all can go do that. It's a good incentive. So you get to see it before anybody else does, and you get video essays. And there's also like a tier where I can give you guys like photo prints and stuff. So if you ever wanted to own my photography, you can go there. Patreon.com/thenerdchicano. But with that said, we will see you all next time, guys. But to my wonderful cinephiles and renowned scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. Catch you guys in the next one.